Thanks for listening to Wolf Moves Only. My name is Brittany, and I'm the creator of Be a Wolf Biz, where I teach people how to build and scale six-figure Etsy shops with print on demand. This is a very special episode. I could not be more excited about it. It took me quite a while to compile because I took the best of moments out of my live workshops, from inside my paid courses and other content, across everything that I've done for 2023 when it comes to Etsy and print on demand. I've compiled in the next hour-long episode all of the best, most potent, juiciest, strategic, and mindset moments. I think you're going to get a lot out of this, so make sure you listen until the end. And if you're feeling super inspired and raring to go after you do listen to this episode, which I hope you will be, I think you will because it's a really good one, I want you to go to www.beawolfbiz.com/start here. That's BEAWOLFBIZ.com/start here. That's going to bring you to a registration page for my totally free masterclass, Top 3 Secret Strategies of the Top 1% Mega Sellers on Etsy. It's a really great masterclass that's going to help you understand more of what I teach and why I teach it in the specific way that I do. You can also follow me on Instagram at BeAWolfBiz and shoot me a DM there if you have any questions, or click the link in that bio to learn more about what I have to offer you in terms of content. And without further ado, let's get into the 2023 Rewind Best of Be a Wolf Biz moments. People are asking in the Facebook group too, like, how do I turn favorites into sales? My least favorite question, because you don't. There's nothing else you can do. People window shop. People see something and go, oh, that's cute, and they heart it. That's a favorite, right? You'll have 50 times more favorites on any listing than you ever do sales, most likely. Like my bestseller listings that would have 300 sales would have 3,000 favorites. That's just the way it works. But again, it's the energy. You're coming, you see the favorites, and that urgency and desperation kicks in. That's what's harming. You guys do not even understand how much it's harming you. You have no idea how much that energy is harming you. When you're seeing the favorites and you're like, oh, how do I turn those into sales? Desperate energy. It's not good. It's holding you back. Just return to your research. Stay grounded. Stop chasing. You don't have to chase sales. You have to just get better. To become more of an expert, you got to do more research. You just got to build the mental archive. Then the sales come in as a landslide. I tell this story all the time, how one of my one-on-one clients, we were working together. I was teaching her how to be a better researcher, how to do lots of research. We're pinning, we're doing all this fun stuff on Pinterest and like just building her expertise. And she got her first sale and she was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. It's like I wasn't even trying, but she was trying, right? She was trying really hard with all of the research and building her expertise, but it doesn't feel like trying because you're not trying to make sales, You're just trying to develop your own expertise. So when you start making those sales as a result of that, you're like, oh, that felt effortless, but really you're putting in tons and tons of effort, but it's not like directly linked with this desperation and urgency. And so when it happens, it feels effortless because you've just been enjoying yourself, building your expertise in your mental archive. That the algorithm, it's not wild, right? It's not something that is mystical or crazy. It's just an algorithm that helps put products that people want in front of more people, because Etsy's always just trying to make money like you are. So the algorithm is specifically designed to put products on the first page that people are most likely to want. This has to do with SEO. It has mostly to do with how much attention the product is getting. So you can have shit SEO and a product on the first page easily. Lots of people do, because it's about the clicks that they're getting. So the algorithm will completely overlook SEO entirely if the product is being purchased a bunch. But within the first 24 to 48 hours, there's a lot of factors that go into helping the algorithm understand how high of demand a product has or how much it doesn't. We talk about all that and demystifying the algorithm. So go watch that in the bonus section if you haven't yet. My shop is a few months old and I still have not found my niche or target customer. I'm focusing on sweatshirts and hoodies. Does it make my shop look bad aesthetically if there are too many different niches? Absolutely not. Don't worry about how your shop looks aesthetically, you guys. I'm telling you this once and for all. Do not worry about what your shop looks like aesthetically. I literally would sell like
opposing political stuff side by side, opposing religious. Like I had everything in my shop and it just did not matter. It just doesn't matter because most people aren't looking at your shop as a whole. They're finding your individual listings and search results. So you as a seller worry about what your shop looks like aesthetic. And of course you should have good mock-ups. You should have all the optimized SEO, optimized everything. So it shouldn't look bad, but a mixture of items has nothing to do with how your shop looks aesthetically. So don't worry about that literally at all.
There are a ton of mega sellers that came out of Top Seller Secret, that came out of Wolf School, whatever. There's lots of people in this world that have studied my content and came out on top. Each and every one of them is a boss, okay? They didn't make the money and then become the boss. This is the most important thing I'm going to say. They became the boss and then made the money. And the idea of like becoming a boss, you're like, what are you even talking about, Brittany? What this means is that their mental game leveled up. And so strategically and from a results standpoint, they leveled up. The mental game happened first. You have to commit to becoming before you start to see the results. You have to become the six-figure seller before you see six figures. But people are like, how do I get six figures faster? Become a six-figure seller, put in the work. Results flow in as a byproduct of this work that I do, and it feels like it was effortless because I wasn't directly working on the results. I was working on myself the whole time. And the results happen as a result of the work on myself.
Of all the mega sellers that I've worked with, what do you guys think mega sellers, true mega sellers, six and multi six-figure level sellers, what do you believe they're obsessed with? Mega sellers are obsessed with what shoppers are shopping for. They are obsessed with knowing what shoppers are currently shopping for, which makes sense, right? It makes total sense. Knowing what shoppers are shopping for allows you to sell what shoppers are shopping for. And if they're actively shopping for it, it means you can sell it. So mega sellers are obsessed with what shoppers are shopping for and how they can get better at giving shoppers those things. Some of you, if you're really new, you might be saying mega sellers are obsessed with strategy. They're obsessed with search engine optimization. They're obsessed with tactics, figuring out how to make more money. No mega seller I've ever met is obsessed with any of those things, period. So the shift that people have to make when they go into selling versus what they actually learn, what it takes over time, it blows their mind because it's two completely different ends of the spectrum. It's not that more listings is going to get you more sales necessarily. The two are not directly correlated as many people think they are. It's just that the learning process of doing more is going to help you gather more information about what works and what doesn't. And it's going to help you learn about yourself. It's going to help you learn about your customers. Taking more action is almost always going to be more beneficial. Mega sellers are experts at taking massive and consistent action. Now, it kind of goes without saying, the mega sellers that I work with have gone through Top Seller Secret. They have gone through my master course. They do have my blueprint, right? But the strategy part of it, that's easy. That's the easy part. I've got it. We know that we know it's proven and it works, period. That's the easiest part of all of this. Getting the strategy to get to six figures is literally the easiest part of all of it. Top Seller Secret, the blueprint inside of Top Seller Secret has been tested and proven over and over and over and over and over again. So we already know that it works. We already know that what's inside is the map to six figures if you do the things that it takes to become that mega seller while implementing the strategy simultaneously. The difference between you and a mega seller, the difference between you right now who's struggling in your shop and a mega seller who's making multi six figures, the difference is that they're taking actions based on the blueprint they're given, and they don't let doubts slow them down. They just go. So many of you have exactly what you're supposed to do right in front of your face, but you're not doing it. A lot of people have exactly what they're supposed to do right in front of them, but they have these mental blocks and these limiting beliefs around being able to do it. So they see exactly what they're supposed to do. It's as if you're holding a map in your hands and you know exactly what next step to take, but for some reason you can't take the next step and you don't know why. But the why is what's happening in your head, the way that you're thinking and the way that you're seeing things. That's what I mean when I say that mega sellers think differently. I would be doing, if I were trying to actively build my Etsy shop, gain momentum, if I had the 6-figure goal and I was like, okay, I got to get there somehow, here are some of the first things I would do, right? I would be casually researching, emphasis on casually, okay? Casually researching around 2 to 3 hours a day. I am not kidding. But the reason I said emphasis on casually is because my form of research is very different than what people think their research should look like. My form of research is scrolling through Pinterest while I'm in line at the grocery store. My form of research is waking up and checking my designated Instagram account, looking at the feed like it's the morning paper while I eat my breakfast, right? I'm not sitting down and creating spreadsheets. I'm saving things that I think are interesting, but I'm simply growing my mental archive throughout the entire day, right? So there may be designated times where I sit down, maybe I'm watching TV or I pop on a movie and I sit down with my laptop and I go through Pinterest, right? It's not all done on my phone. But the reason why I'm just saying casually is because you got to make it work for you. If you make it a chore and if you make research and brain priming and mental archive building this huge deal and this methodical thing that has to be like, okay, I'm going to take notes. I got to have my notebook in order to research. I have to be able to focus. I can't be doing other things while I research. Like casual, dialing down the seriousness of it, right? That's what's really going to make the difference for most of you. Because all research is just letting your eyeballs look at information. Your mental archive is getting built by default. It's a super easy thing. It does not have to be so damn serious, right? It can be fun and it can just be something that's done very casually. There's stuff everywhere, you guys. It's just that in your brain, you're getting way too jumbled up about doing things perfectly and correctly that you're not even doing anything. So much of your success in creating new designs has to do with how well you understand as the seller, how well you understand why this stuff is in demand and can emotionally understand why it resonates as well. When I say I was insane, I did whatever it took. I literally did whatever it took. That's why nowadays when people are like, oh, but they're out of stock of the sand sweatshirt. I hate Etsy. Print on demand is hard. I'm like, shut up. Like literally, I've got no sympathy for you guys in terms of when things get hard with print on demand, because print on demand is a piece of freaking cake. It is the holy grail of Etsy business models. I'm like, no whining about anything out of stock. Yeah, and that's, you guys, there's so much more to the story. There was so many other things I was making by hand as well. The shorts were just a slice of that pie. So anyways, when I tell you I do whatever it takes, I mean it. Once I found print on demand, there was like the heavens opened. It was like, thank God. You get to be creative and have so much fun with this. The more fun you have, the more successful you're going to be. And a lot of people don't like to hear that. They're like, Brittany, don't teach us how to have fun. Teach us how to make money. Fun equals creativity. When you're having fun, when you're actually enjoying yourself, when there's no pressure, your creative bubble, your capacity for creativity expands 1,000,000%. Okay? I mean that 1,000,000%. When you're actually having fun, you create space for ideas to form without judgment. You create space for exploration, for curiosity, for play. When you can play, like I was doing in the beginning, the reason I teach this and believe in it so firmly is because back in 2014, when I was hand painting Galaxy shorts, I was playing, you guys. I was doing nothing but playing. I was not like, how do I get to a 6-figure shop? How do I create 6 figures? How do I make more sales? I was like, ooh, this was fun. And these people are loving it. I sold my first pair of Galaxy shorts in 24 hours. So I was like, oh my God, yay. People love this as much as I do. What else can I make for them? What else would be so much fun? I'd be at Michael's 20 times a day buying different fabric paints and like trying different jean shorts and just like having fun. You couldn't pull me away from it because I was having so much fun. My parents, I was living with them at the time. They thought I was going insane, you guys. Because I was like rushing from room to room and painting and like I'd be all messy 12, 14 hours a day. I was just playing. There was so much release, so much lack of pressure. It was not about money, right? And a lot of you might say, well, it has to be about money for me. I have to feed my kids. I have to provide for my family, blah, 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 blah. I get that, of course. But putting pressure on yourself about that is not going to help you get the results faster. It's going to slow down the process. Any level of pressure is slowing you down and throwing resistance on your six-figure trail. So the more you can have fun, the more you can enjoy the process, the more you can just get into that vibe of like, ooh, research is so much fun. I can't wait to do it today. I'll say this one more time. I always say it. I know you guys are getting tired of hearing it. I always know when someone's on the six-figure trajectory, when they tell me, Brittany, I am obsessed with research. When they say those words, I'm like, yep, okay, see you soon in the six-figure Hall of Fame for Top Seller Secret, because that's where you're headed. Because when somebody loves research so much that they're obsessed with it, it means they're having fun. You can't be obsessed with something that isn't providing fun for you, right? Then you wouldn't be obsessed with it. Some amount of joy, right? So when somebody is obsessed with research, it means they're exactly where they need to be in terms of their trajectory. And when people come to me and they say, Brittany, how do I make sales faster? I know they're on the opposite end of that spectrum and on the completely wrong trajectory. So when those thoughts start to pop up and when you're trend combining and when you're like, am I doing this right? I don't know if this looks good. I'm not going to publish it because I don't like it enough. Nobody's going to like my designs. When am I going to make sales faster? I'm not cut out for this. I hate watching the six-figure seller interviews because they make me sad that it's not me. When is it going to be my turn? I don't think I'm good at research. I don't really think I'm that good at design. Everybody else seems to... all those sort of things, wrong trajectory. You might as well just stop like trying to get good at research and trying so hard to get good at design, because as long as you're on that trajectory, like, of course you should keep trying to find the correct trajectory, but I mean, stop trying altogether and step away and return when you're in a better place. When you guys get so caught up in your head, that's when you lose it. You lose everything. It's not even worth it. When you're forcing things, when you're forcing yourself to research, when you're forcing yourself to design, and all the while you're thinking like, how do I make sales faster? Such a horrible, horrible place to be. And it feels bad inside. If you're in a place in your print on demand journey where it just feels bad inside, step away. You got to shift your perspective. Listen to motivation and mindset weeks in Wolf School, right? Read a motivational book. I was just talking about in the Wolf School, in the Top Seller Secret Facebook group today, Relentless by Tim Grover, The Obstacle is the Way, Unfuck Yourself. 3 really good books, right? If you need to get your engine revving to throw yourself on a new trajectory, get the resources to help you do that, right? Being on this call right now, who's feeling a shift? Get in the chat. If you're feeling a shift listening to me on this tangent, type me in the chat right now. I want to see that shift happening for you guys, right? Stuff like this is what is going to help you get out of your own head and onto the right trajectory, because you're just like, oh, I've been stuck, right? I've totally been stuck.
Most people hear mindset, it's just kind of one of those buzzwords. It's just kind of like static. It's like, what does that even mean anymore? For me, mindset is where your mind is set, which means whatever point your mind is set at is where your decisions come from. If you're at the wrong set point, if you're not at the six-figure seller trajectory set point, you're not going to be making six-figure seller decisions. And if you're not making six-figure seller decisions, you're not going to be a six-figure seller. Most people are not on the six-figure seller trajectory. Their decision-making is not up to six-figure seller par, because they're so focused on just executing strategy. They're not thinking about how to become better and more of an expert at giving customers what they want. Their decisions are off. Their decisions are on the trajectory of less than six-figure sales, because they're so focused on themselves. They're so focused on how to get more sales faster. Six-figure sellers focus on their customers. Less than six-figure sellers that continue to flail and fail are the ones that are making decisions for themselves only. They're only seller-based thinkers.
The least options you can give your customers, the better. A lot of people don't know that, but when sellers are offering like 20 colors and 16 different sizes, it's very overwhelming. And a lot of times people will just abandon ship. They're like, well, I wanted this, but now I can't decide which color I want it in. So I'll just go find something easier. You know, like it's this crisis because they're like, I want 3 of these colors. I don't know which one to pick. And this fun shopping experience has suddenly turned stressful. So honestly, like offer 5 colors, 6 tops, whatever makes the most sense for that design or niche. I've been getting some views and visits, but no sales yet. I'm getting excited at what is to come. Amber, head down, blinders on. Head down, blinders on, you guys. I cannot emphasize that enough. Your only goal is creating a customer utopia. Sales will come as a byproduct. The more you focus on where your sales are at, even the more like momentum you're ramping up toward that, being like, I know it's just around the corner. Stop looking for it and anticipating it. And it's not even like you're so not focused on it that you're not even saying, oh, my sales don't matter. You're just not thinking about them, period. You guys, I was never checking my stats. It's so wild to me. And it makes me sad to hear people being like, I check my stats 4 times an hour and I'm waiting for my first bestseller badge and I'm always checking and checking and checking. And I'm like, that's so sad. For me, it was so much fun because I was never measuring, that it was all about the creating. And when you guys can get in that stage, time doesn't exist. You don't even have to think about time at all. You don't have to think about how long or how short or whatever. It's just like the better I get, the results follow me. Results are building and following me based on the work I'm doing in the process with my head down and my blinders on. The only time Etsy or Etsy ads will work for you and you won't waste a ton of money on them. And I can sit here and tell you this all day and you're still going to try it. And that's fine. Everybody does. They hear me, but then they're like, I'm going to try it anyways. And that's fine, but you'll lose money. Just letting you know, because it happens to literally everybody. But ads are icing on the cake. And they only work once you already have very solid, consistent momentum organically. If you're just trying to gain traction with ads in addition to building organically, you're going to waste money. It doesn't work that way. You've already got to have enough momentum for Etsy to like recognize the ads. And more importantly, the momentum is showing that people already want those things organically. And those listings will do better with ads because you already know people want them. But like you're still in the testing phase in the beginning. So when you think ads are going to help you, you're really just showing more people more listings that they don't want. Ads are the icing on the cake. And people are like, well, how long until I turn them on? When your sales are consistent and you feel like you're a solid organic shop. And I'm not saying that to be a downer. Like that's the only time they work. I have one design that's selling, but I've tried using the design in different ways, fonts, similar styles, but they're not popular. Time to ditch it, move on. Always. Yeah. If something doesn't work, just move on. Maybe the algorithm is still trying to figure it out. Could be either. Doesn't matter either way. You know, like just trying out. Sometimes it hits, sometimes it doesn't. And either way, it just could not matter less. It means nothing. The only reason you're testing is just to see if it does work. And yeah, the algorithm needs time to do its thing. Don't like list things and hover over them and be like, is it working? Is it working? Just move on to other things. I can do so many things to change where I am. Where I am is a temporary state, you know, but for some people to just be like, I can't do it. I'll never be able to do it. It's just silly. It's because they can't tolerate the uncertainty. It's because they can't tolerate the fact that they're not as good as they want to be yet. And it's because they think when they begin, their perspective is not that print on demand and design is like any other skill. Their perspective is that I should be able to hop on and make sales within the first week, because people don't think of it as a skill, just like anything else. They think of it as like, well, I'm just going to put my table down at the craft fair and people better buy from me. And it's like, why? Why do you think that way? Why do you think that's how this works? I will never understand it, but that is truly most people's mindset about it. I love when sellers get to the point where they're like, Brittany, a light switch, I feel like was flipped in my experience. And now I'm obsessed with researching. It's all I want to do. And I'm like, there it is. When I get those messages, and I do a lot, people will be like, I used to be resistant to it. I used to not get it. I used to hear you talk about it all the time, but I used to just like, it never clicked with me. And now it's all I can do. I know that their massive breakthrough, like that landslide of the results that they've been looking for. They're on the trajectory. And it every time. What I'm supplying to my customers in a way that narrows in more and more on what they are looking for and what they want every single day. It's so delicious, you guys. It is, I said in my Instagram stories when I was talking about this, it is the most fun period of my life that I ever had and probably will ever have, those first 4 years of opening my shop, because there was so much flow. Everything just clicked and made sense because there was no focus whatsoever, not even 1% focus on six figures. That's why I got 6 figures in like a little over a year. My first year is because I never even thought about it. I was so detached because I was completely and utterly clueless. And that's one of the best places to be, right? To just be open to the creative experience and being obsessed with your customers. Like, I have so much fun with my customers. I'd be like, hey girl, you need your shorts by this date? Of course. Will you send me pics? Like, we were like vibing, and it was such a fun experience. Of course, I was always very professional, but it was just fun. Like, the level of flow, you guys, I can't even put it into words. Like, you wouldn't believe it. I still can't believe it. Looking back, I was like, that's reverse engineering. I was like, that's what counted. Yes, I figured out strategy along the way, but if I could just gift every one of my followers the ability to go in with so much vibe and flow and obsession with your customers, like, I would give it to each and every one of you, because you'd have guaranteed 6 figures then. Sarah says, love Instagram trend spotting. I wake up, look at my designated page, and go to bed browsing there too. It helps me turn my social media use from a distraction into a tool. 110%, Sarah. It's such a gold mine of useful, it's a resource, right? People like think they waste too much time on Instagram, but when you're trend spotting, I know people don't realize the level of value that's within Instagram, and Research Revolution kind of like pulls the curtain back on that and helps people make the connection of like, oh shit, that's what I've been missing. Almost every time I've gotten that response so many times from people after going through that masterclass. They're like, oh, that's why you go on and 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 on about this. And I'm like, yeah, that's why. Simplicity, especially when you're new, is the easiest hack to getting to 6 figures as fast as possible. And I mean that with all of my heart, because I did it. Every single product that I ever sold, like, I can't think of a single one that had a bestseller badge. And I had over 50 to 100, over 100 bestseller badges in all of my shops combined over the last 8 years. Never once was it a super complex design. It was typically one quote, like not even fancy, one quote with a little design element underneath it, or it was 2 words and a design element, like crazy simple. And once I figured out how that works, and I've always been really good at emotional connection, right? That just comes naturally to me. And I was constantly researching, so that part came easy as well. Once I realized, like, if I can create something simple and get the power of emotional connection behind it, because I truly understand what people like, the power behind the emotion that people want to express through this super simple design, I can create a bestseller badge 1,000,000 times over. And I still believe that. So that's a bad habit that a lot of new sellers have to, or not even a bad habit. It's a mindset shift. You don't have to go more complex. You shouldn't go more complex most of the time. Do you think those simple designs work so well because you were first to the idea or quote? Really, really, really brilliant question, Angie. This is like so good. Sometimes yes. Most of the time, yes. But a lot of times, not a lot of times. Okay, so here's the thing. Many times with my bestsellers, I would see, and you know what the funny part is about this, you guys, is that'd be 5 years now. I saw a quote on Instagram. It was from somebody ages ago, so it was already in public domain. And it was a feminist quote. And I was like, that's the best quote I've ever seen. It's so powerful. I'm putting that on a t-shirt. I'm not doing anything fancy with it because the quote is so good and so powerful. It was just like a quote, an Instagram post with the quote written on it. There was nothing else. It was just an Instagram post quote. And I saw it while I was trend spotting, and I was like, oh my God, yes. And every like alarm in my brain, my trend spotting, well-primed, mental archived brain went off. And so I put it on a white t-shirt in red typewriter font, 3 lines of text, not even different sizes, no curve tool, no nothing. It was just 3 lines of text, and it was a bestseller within like 2 weeks. It is all over Etsy now. Like, it's still being ripped off. Well, not ripped off because it's not my quote, but the idea for the quote on a t-shirt, you'll still find it all over Etsy, all over AliExpress 5 years later, right? So that was a really, I'm not going to call it luck because it wasn't luck. It was because my brain was well primed and I was specifically trend spotting on Instagram for ideas like this. But things like that would happen. And yes, they turn into a bestseller because they're unique. Things have to be unique. You cannot recreate shit that's already all over Etsy and expect it to become a bestseller. It's already being sold everywhere. Even if you put a curve tool on it and everybody else, like, no, you have to create some form of uniqueness to it. And somebody shared in the Facebook group, who was it? If you're here, tell me, but they shared a design where they took Let's Go Girls and they made it Let's Grow Girls. Who was that? Carissa. That's right, Carissa. Okay, so Carissa is a genius, and took Let's Go Girls, which is huge on Etsy right now. It's like a, you know, like the Shania Twain song, whatever. It's like very Western cowgirlish, and Carissa made it Let's Grow Girls, and then put like you know, someone meditating or whatever with like pretty vines growing out of her, whatever. That's what I'm talking about, you guys. That is exactly what I mean when I say like put your own spin on it. And people like, yeah, but how do you do that? And you do it by having a really big mental archive. You do it by having been so well researched that when you sit down and go, okay, Let's Go Girls is big. What else could I do with Let's Go Girls that could fit into another niche and could make it unique? It could resonate with the same amount of demand, but in a different area, right? Let's Grow Girls does exactly that. And you see me do that a ton in Wolf School as well. There was one that I just did. What was it for? I was very proud of it. Oh, I took Fairy Princess and I made it Dairy Princess for one of the trends. Those little tiny changes, those little play on words take you completely out of the super saturated markets and put you into this whole new realm of possibility. But you have to be creative, and you can't be creative unless you've got the mental archive, and you can't have the mental archive unless you've done the freaking work. And nobody wants to do the work because they think they don't know how to do it. And that's why I've got Research Revolution for you guys, okay? Because it is a revolution. So Angie, wow, I just really rambled about that. To answer your question, yes, in a lot of my bestsellers, I was the first to the idea or the quote, but some of them I would put a different spin on it or make it more simple or add an exciting, different, interesting design element. But I'm not a fan, because it doesn't work, of taking generic things that everybody's already doing, like grow where you are or bloom where you're planted. Like yawn. It's so done. Those are so done. Bloom where you are, grow where you're planted, whatever, like over and over and over and over and over again. Let's Go Girls and all that sort of stuff. Like, it's been done. Don't try to do it. And even if you see a bunch of those and like they've all got bestseller badges, okay, it's done. They've all got the bestseller badges, right? But people, I'm going to say it, are lazy. And they just want to recreate stuff that's already being done because they're like, well, that's working, so I'll do it too. Go ahead and do it, but you're just wasting your time. So you're not actually accomplishing anything.
Action is obviously so important. You have to take action in order to see progress. But the problem is that sometimes people take action without ever improving because they don't hone the correct skills. They don't get the right resources. They don't pay attention to their growth because they're so just focused on action, right? And part of the problem is this YouTube phenomena of people just telling you to go out there and do this. And then most print on demand sellers are just blindly following that advice of like, okay, I just have to put stuff out there. I just have to get to 1,000 listings. I just have to do this. I just have to do that. And it's not necessarily that you have to do something. The action in and of itself isn't going to necessarily help you. It's the growth that comes from taking action, which will only happen if you do things in a specific growth pattern. The growth pattern happens when you're intentionally taking action
and equipping yourself with the right knowledge at the same time. So what I see a lot with new print-on-demand sellers is they'll take a bunch of action and they're putting out a bunch of designs, and everybody sucks at first, right? Most of the time, if somebody's just starting out, your designs are going to suck. What happens for a lot of people is that their designs never get any better, because they're not simultaneously doing the research. They're not simultaneously building their mental archive. They're not getting the resources they need to take action and improve at the same time. Taking action will help you improve on some level, but without getting the right education and knowledge behind the action, you're going to keep creating more of the same stuff and you're not going to level up in terms of your skill. So at this point, if you guys have been with me long enough, you know that I'm all about creating six-figure sellers. I am not in the business of helping you create a six-figure shop. I have no interest in that. My interest is helping you become a six-figure seller so you can create a sustainable six-figure shop. And the only way that I can achieve that overarching goal of helping you to become a six-figure seller is to help you understand what you need in order to be that person, that business owner, what skills you need, what mindset you need. Because there's two pieces of the pie there. You need the mental aspect and you need the abilities aspect. So when we're talking about actions, the growth process, that at least this is what works best for me. I want to give you guys really tangible stuff here in this live today. What works for me is always taking action, right? You're never ceasing action. You're always creating new things. You're always writing ideas down. You're always committed to doing the research and having fun with the research and checking daily your designated trend spotting Instagram account, right? You're doing all of that background stuff. And then you're taking action simultaneously. What I like to do is do things in little bite-sized pieces. And I think this is what most people do not do, and which is why most people are overwhelmed. I like to do a little research, get a little inspired, and do a little bit of creating. And then I'll see like, oh, you know what? I'm not really that good at choosing fonts right now. What resource can I use to help me get better? Or let me stop for a second because I feel like I'm struggling here. Let me stop and go research bestsellers and paying specific attention to the fonts, right? I don't have this problem anymore because I have a big mental archive at this point, but I'm saying, speaking from where most people that are new sellers, what you guys are struggling with the most, a lot of times it's fonts or sizing or spacing or emotional connection. Most of you are not getting to the point where you can feel yourself struggling and you don't stop to then learn more about it. You just keep going and trying and pushing it. And then you feel really frustrated and overwhelmed. And you're like, why am I not better?
The best thing you can really do to combat overthinking and overcomplication is just to trust yourself and take action. Because what you need to realize is that if you do something and it's wrong, it's really just as valuable as doing something and it being right, because you're learning things either way. So instead of being in the energy of, oh, I don't know if I'm doing this right, I feel like I'm bad at it, I feel like there's more I need to know, I need to understand it better, instead of being in that energy, which is very constrictive and shuts down your creative valve, which is your moneymaker, and makes you feel insignificant and powerless. It's a yucky energy to be in. Instead of staying there, I want you guys to practice being in the energy of curiosity. What if I tried this? What if I just did this? It does not matter if it doesn't work, because you're going to learn new things if it doesn't work. You're going to learn to try something else, or you're going to learn to go in a different direction, or you're going to learn to try a new angle. Being in the energy of curiosity does a few things. It allows your creative valve to stay wide open. And as I said, your creative valve is your moneymaker in your shop. The more open of a creative valve that you have, which requires that you're intentional about the energy that you're in at all times, it requires that you trust yourself and that you just take action no matter what. Being in that energy with an open creative valve, holding a space of curiosity inside of yourself, helps your creativity. It allows you to take action without fear, which is your main block, because overcomplication and overthinking is really a fear response, because you don't want to get things wrong, because you don't want to feel stupid, because you don't want to waste time, because you don't want to this, you don't want to that. When all is said and done, you're wasting so much more time overthinking and overcomplicating and not taking any action. The people who get to the top extremely fast are the ones who just go. They just run. And they're just curious about the process the whole time. And they're very good at logging information and feedback and data as they're taking action. Okay, so if you're one of those people who errs on the side of caution and there's a lot of hesitation and there's a lot of fear, if you're an overthinker or an overcomplicator by nature, understand that that is a fear response.
We here at Beowulf Biz understand that on Etsy, it's first a game of attracting traffic, because we know for certain that 2 million shoppers per year is enough to sustain a 6-figure business. It just is, period. End of story, no debating it, okay? There's proof of it being enough. So we understand it's a game of attraction and not a game of driving traffic. Please delete your Instagram shop accounts. You're wasting time. So your job is to become the honeypot to the bee, right? The flame to the moth. You're offering stuff that's so tempting, that connects with what customers are actually looking for so perfectly that it just flows. It's like magnetic. They cannot resist your listings. Unless you begin by validating the fact that people are actually actively searching for what you're trying to sell, you will, guaranteed, shoot and miss. You'll continue to shoot and miss. Etsy is the perfect environment to test and validate products because of its 2 million annual organic shopping stream, okay? So if you're creating stuff and people aren't buying it, it means the right actions aren't being taken. Because when you have stuff people do actually want and they're actually searching for and you're making database decisions, it works. People buy. We know that for certain. Top Seller Secret students blow things out of the water. And that's for one single reason only. That being, they take right action, okay? So your mission is to become the flame to the moth and the honeypot to the bee. How long did it take for you to find your niche?
That was probably month 6. I knew what I kind of wanted to do. And my niche had something a little bit, I posted that one, I was, like testing, posted that one shirt. Finding that niche, I was thrown into it, knew really nothing about it, just like you and your rave shop that you were talking about, knew nothing about it. But once my customers told me what they wanted, I was like, I have to become an absolute expert in this niche. And I'm not going to only be an expert, I'm going to be the best one. And I'm going to give them exactly what they're looking for.
What's the average timeline? So here's my answer to this, and I'm going to be extremely straightforward, as I always am, okay? There is no timeline. You don't get a timeline. You have to tolerate uncertainty, because the only thing that determines your timeline is your commitment to becoming the expert. There is no timeline. Some people do it in 3 weeks. Some people start getting landslides of sales in 3 weeks. Some people don't get sales for 3 years because they're following the wrong map. The timeline that it takes, which I highly suggest everybody stops considering the timeline and shifts their focus entirely to becoming an expert, because then the timeline is obsolete. It doesn't matter, because you're just making so many sales so fast because you're focused in the right area that you're not even considering a timeline anymore, because it's all happening for you already. There is no time frame. It is completely and entirely up to how committed the individual seller is to building their mental archive and to becoming the expert. If anybody gives you a timeline, they're bullshitting you, because it's up to you. My content works. Within Top Seller Secret is a tested and proven roadmap. It is the correct roadmap. The variable is the individual seller. Whether or not it works for them is completely up to them, because we already know the roadmap works. But if you're holding my roadmap and you're taking all these detours because you're second guessing yourself, or you're trying to do things your way instead, your timeline gets a whole lot longer. But the people like Molly, who just follow the map as it is because it's proven and she trusts it, they cut that time in half. But Molly also had a hard time, she said in the beginning, getting over her ego and not doing things the way she wanted to do. She told you she took detours because she wanted to do what she wanted to do. She wanted to make the wrong map work right. But you can't get the right results with the wrong actions, okay? There's no timeline, you guys. So finding your customer, this is a loaded question. This is something that
you would need to be in Top Seller Secret to fully understand. It is not an answer I can give you in the limited time we have here. Finding your customer and then reverse engineering your offer is an entire process inside my scientist, detective, gymnast phases, right? So you're creating your hypothesis, testing different products, figuring out like, ooh, that got favorites, that got sales. Let's detective mode. We see that that worked. Let's get into our gymnast phase of flexibility and build out on the stuff that's working. So reverse engineering your product offering is being able to see things that are working and create more of them. Scientist, yeah, LP Floral says scientist, detective, gymnast phase is the absolute key. And that is how people go from 0 to multi six figures. 6 figures or multi 6 figures is my scientist, detective, gymnast phases. It is my literal process for scaling.
She is a mega seller. She is mind blowing. She is everything that embodies. And I worked really closely with Tracy for a really long time. She's a Top Seller Secret student, and she's bought probably every single other thing I've ever sold, like literally. She's been with me for a long time, but she is the embodiment of everything that I teach. Like, she does things by the book, and she is so brilliant in her ability to emotionally connect with her customers. She has actually built an entire empire through emotional connection. Your love of research and your like excitement around it and the fun you have with it is huge in what you've been able to create, because you don't see it as a chore. You see it as something as like a direct reflection of possibility. So tell us, what's your perspective on the Mental Archive, and do you believe in its power, and do you attribute any of your success to it?
Yeah. So it's funny, in the last couple of days when we've been talking, I didn't actually even probably register that I've been doing it to the level that I've been doing it. I just it's actually been quite a good realization as to what I have been doing by coming into this conversation. The one thing with my refining of my process that I have done is I have increased how much time I spend in research. So I actually, everything else I scale back, and that's the thing that I've increased more and more as time goes by. Value I get out of it is just I get the most out of it. I get everything out of it. I spend a lot of time on Instagram, like in my training account. I spent a lot of time in Pinterest. My Pinterest boards are dime a dozen. And I don't necessarily know whether I'm going to do anything with it, use it. I might park it and not even come back to it. But
Right.
But I just kind of, I allow myself to go down those rabbit holes, and I save it all and I construct it, and then I come back to it later on.
People think that they need to be researching just t-shirts, and I'm like, no, color palettes, like you said, shapes, look at mood boards, like get the vibe and emotional connection. Talk to us about emotional connection and how you think that has helped you build a rapport with your customers, and almost like you have a community, right? Like you have people that are diehard fans. Talk to us about emotional connection and how you interpret that.
My niche as a community is number one, right? So I am part of I am my own customer in one respect. Also makes it slightly easier, I guess, because I kind of understand at least a premise. But what I do is I have an Instagram that's basically dedicated to being part of the community. It's not, so I go, what does my niche, what do they do? What are they doing in the weekend? What do they love to do how do they spend their Saturday nights? What are they excited for next? It's not about a t-shirt. It's like, what are they excited about for next? What do they do in their spare time? Who do they hang out with? That kind of stuff. So I embed myself in that world to get to know what my customer. And what's awesome about things like Instagram is you see people on their comments, people are really like vocal about what they're looking for. They're really vocal. Nobody just like, oh God, I wish I could see such and such. Or, I can't wait to go to the lake with my family this summer. It's going to be awesome. And you're just like, lake with family, chalking that up one for later. Don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm chalking it up. So I do a lot of that. And then it allows, when I get to the trend combining piece, is to go, what trend makes sense for them? Because that's one thing that took me a really long time to go, is not all trends make sense to put together to get that emotional connection that you're looking for. So like, what are they looking for? What are they talking about that they don't realize?
Well, and I love that you said that about you have a trend trend research Instagram, and then you have an Instagram dedicated to researching your customers' lifestyles.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And you guys, this is such a high level 6-figure seller move. If that's over your head, like if you guys are watching this and you're like, what would I learn from that? I don't get that. Like that just seems like it wouldn't be relevant to me. It's probably because you're not quite yet thinking like a 6-figure seller, because these are the moves that 6-figure sellers make, to be so drowning in research in all aspects to where you're literally obsessed with your customer. Like, how do I know more about them so I can give them more of what they're looking for? Would you agree?
Yeah, and like there's communities everywhere. Like Instagram and TikTok are amazing for communities, and there is a lot of people in all these communities too, which is cool. Like if you think about even like if you like the celestial vibe type stuff, like you can find some hashtags and you just slowly find people and you know, what are they doing? What are they buying? Are they buying a new crystal? What kind of crystals? Are they just like, oh my god, amethyst? Everyone's like, I love amethyst, it's so good. You know, there's a new green witch book that they're looking at. What are they doing in the weekends? What are they wearing on a normal day? How do they spend their time? Like they're doing stuff and they're talking about things, or those things that they've just got that's nothing to do with clothing, but they're excited for. And you're just like, what are you excited? I'm excited for that. That's great. Yeah. And that gives you your information for like what things you can work with. And you won't work with everything. You kind of, over time, you will learn to pick out the things that work for you and that you associate with and that you are like, vibe that works for me.
Thank you for saying that again too, because that's another point I wanted to touch on. You said some things you find and they're not relevant. It just doesn't matter. And some things you find and it matters a lot. So it's important just to look at everything, right? And I think a lot of people worry, like I don't know how to research because I don't know if I'm looking at the right stuff or in the right place or whatever. And I'm like, just look, like go with where you feel like is the most valuable and go down rabbit holes and allow yourself to just fall into like the research and being able to understand your customers on a new level. It doesn't have to be perfect, and you're not going to use everything you look at, but that mental archive is going to make connections that you aren't even aware of until you sit down to design.
It'll be just those little things where you read something, you look at something, you're just like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And that's just like, now you've got your own connection with it too. And I think that I relate better that way.
Totally.
Yeah.
I love that. And it's so closely a reflection of my experience as well. Almost everybody here knows I had a Raven Festival wear shop, right? And my customers would get my shorts and then message me and say, can I have this by Coachella? Can I have this by whatever? And they name all these different raves. I've never been to a Raven Festival in my life, but I became a Raven Festival girl without even going, just by like really immersing myself. I went and followed Coachella. I went and followed all the like Electric Daisy Carnival Instagrams, and I was watching people and what they were wearing and what they liked and what excited them. So it's like, there's so much power in excitement and what gets people excited. If you've got crappy SEO, if you've got crappy photos, if you've got crappy descriptions, and you've got really high demand designs, we see this constantly on Etsy. Guess what? You can still create bestseller listings. Your listings can still fly off the shelf if everything else absolutely sucks, but you have unique in-demand designs. Now that blows a lot of people's minds, because most people are focused on the SEO. Most people are focused on the photos. Oh, maybe it's my price point. No, it's your designs. They don't have enough demand. If you're selling what people are actually wanting and it's unique and it's what they're actually actively searching for, they're gonna buy it. They're gonna find it. The algorithm is going to make them find it. Okay, that's how demand works. The higher demand you have on your designs, the easier your quest to 6 figures will be. I guarantee you, I promise you, that is the way that it works. Why in the world is research actually so important? The foundation of every 6-figure shop, the foundation of every shop that explodes, right? That does really, really well, is that they have an understanding of what people are searching for. And that does not mean they understand that people are looking, I keep using this example, but let's say dog shirts, right? They're like, okay, we see that dog shirts is one that a lot of people are wanting, so let's just create a picture of a dog and it says, I love dogs. They know better, okay? They're saying, okay, how can we, 1, take advantage of this demand, and 2, create something that's differentiated from everybody else and is really special and emotionally connective, so people actually buy our product as opposed to the thousands of others that they have the option to buy on the Etsy marketplace as a whole. The more research you do, the bigger you build what I call your mental archive. Building your mental archive means you're logging specific details in your subconscious
about demand. So when you actually sit down to design, it feels effortless. You're connecting all of these dots, you're putting things here, you're using this quote that you saw there and you're changing it to this because you saw that there. Like it's this little like whole algorithm in your brain. When people watch me, I do design editing in Wolf School, my monthly membership. People, send in their designs and I'll do the edits of it. And people always say, Brittany, I don't understand how you can look at a design and make changes to it that quickly and improve it that greatly. And that it seems like you're not even trying. And it doesn't feel like I'm trying because I have a mental archive that's been being built for 10 years straight. I have so many details about what's currently in demand logged in my subconscious that when I sit down to design, literally the algorithm just starts going, and I'm just like able to move my hands and not really think about it. And I know, like, put this much spacing here, use this word here, move this there, make this thicker, make this thinner, move this, like it just happens because I have done enough research to build my mental archive, and my mental archive is pretty massive at this point when it comes to demand. Your mental archive when you start is as small as a pea, and people are trying to create massive mental archive designs on a pea-sized mental archive brain. And it's just never going to happen because you don't have enough details about demand to create things that are super high demand. But people are trying to do it anyway because they don't want to do research. They think it's boring. They don't make the connection between researching means cash. Research equals cash. And it does. Research equals cash flow. That's how it is. Okay, so stop trying to create these super high demand designs and getting frustrated when they're not high demand, when nobody's buying them, and you have a pea-sized mental archive. Do the research first. Put in the work that you need to do in order to understand how to create for demand. And then it'll start feeling more and more effortless. At first, it's going to suck. At first, it's going to feel terrible because any new skill that you're learning feels terrible when you first start doing it. And it kind of bangs up your ego a little bit because you want to be better faster. But there's no way to skip your way through the learning curve. You just have to do what you got to do until you get better, and then you can do better. The most important part about research is understanding that we're researching to prime our brain, right? That's another term that phrase that I termed. Like mental archive, brain priming is the process of researching, priming your brain to understand demand, priming your brain to build your mental archive. Understanding demand and building your mental archive are the same thing, right? So researching correctly primes your brain to understand trends as a whole. So I did not show you those bestsellers at the beginning of this workshop so you can go off and design a sun shirt that looks the exact same way. That is completely counterintuitive. It's not going to work. It already exists. We're brain priming in order to understand demand as a whole. So when you sit down, you can create your own unique versions of things that people actually want to buy because it doesn't exist yet. But you have to get to a certain point, to a certain mental archive size before you can begin effectively doing that consistently. So we are never researching to copy. That is not helpful for anybody. I don't want any of this to feel like teeth gritting, fine, I'll do the research today kind of vibe. I want you to feel like there's nothing you'd rather be doing than researching. If you can get to that point, I can absolutely promise you guys, if you can get to the point where like you can't wait to check your designated trend spotting Instagram account in the morning, and you're just like, yes, let me get this. Let me save this to Pinterest. Let me screenshot this and put it in my notes. Ooh, this is a great one. Let me save this to a folder. Like if you're in that zone, nothing can stop you. You will not be stopped. You will reach six figures way faster than you think you will. And that's coming from any level of creative ability. Because if you're good at research, you're priming your brain to understand what's in demand and the structure of designs and the type of color combinations and font combinations and all that sort of stuff. So you're actually learning how to design just by trend spotting. Mega sellers are simply obsessed with the means, which is the process, so much so that it is their end, okay? Massive results are a natural byproduct of this perspective. Massive results do not come by force. Most of my students who achieve massive results are like, whoa, that literally came out of nowhere. Because they're so focused on the process that this landslide of sales comes in and they're like, oh, that's right.
I was doing all this to get sales. Cool. They're here. That's amazing. And it doesn't feel like, oh, finally, praise God, the war is over. When that happens naturally, when something's a natural byproduct of something else, it doesn't feel like this huge, big, massive deal. It just feels natural. It feels like, oh yeah, that's cool. Let's get back to work. Because the process is where you're always at. It's like, yeah, I'm really glad that happened, but it makes sense that it happened because I've been so focused here that like that just came in as a landslide and nothing could make more sense.